Oh,
There you go.
well. Okay. So, open source intelligence. Today I will be presenting, and Michael will be presenting, kind of how to, I would say, create a map, look around the internet and figure out more information at a high level, kind of understand how to look around effectively open source intelligence. Is it on this one?
Yeah.
I can take that. Yeah, open source intelligence is a great beginner topic. We have some people that are beginners. And so especially after fall CTF, which I hope you guys showed up to. So thank you. Give yourself a round of applause for playing fall CTF. It was an awesome time. A lot of the challenges will be migrated. They'll be on CTF. They should be on CTFD. So stick around. We will also have a recap, and we'll be sending out some sort of like, what was it, like a feedback form for the fall CTF and kind of how you guys enjoyed it. So be on the lookout for that, as well as we have Sunshine CTF coming up this Saturday, September 27th at 9 a.m. I'm assuming that's because of time zones or something. 9 a.m. is early. Who here wakes up before 9? Okay, we're gonna have people coming out. Let's go. That's exciting. So yeah, show up. It's gonna be fun. It'll run for 48 hours and it'll be somewhere in Seattle. So yeah, so this is the meeting flag for today. Yeah, take a look at it. Type it in on CTFD. If you're not familiar yet, CTFD, or actually, if you're joining from fall CTF, you went to fall CTF, you actually weren't a part of SIGPwny before this. We have an internal capture the flag directory of challenges for you. If you go to SIGPwny.com and go to it's like Pwny CTF tab in the top right, you will be able to log in, and I think do you have to authenticate to be part of it? Yeah, so you do have to authenticate. Okay. If you have any issues, raise your hand and a helper can come around and kind of help you.
You can also submit a ticket on Discord.
Or a ticket, yes, yeah. That as well. Yeah, and this will be on the end of the slide, so feel free. We have a question here if one of our helpers can help out. Did you have a question? Did you have a question? No, maybe. Helper be on the lookout. IPU.
Anybody's now up.
Perfect. So actually, before I go on to the next thing, does anyone want to take a shot at defining what open source intelligence is? You're a helper. You can't. Yes, in the back.
Figuring out information of people like without like interacting with.
Okay, so we have like figuring out information and kind of getting like awareness. I like that. Any others? Stalking. No comment. No, actually, we have slides on that, but yeah. So I think the awareness piece is really important, as well as the fact that the information will be publicly available. OSINT is a short term for open source intelligence, kind of like the beginning slide. And open source means that it's publicly available. This is public information. It's very different than private information, because if somebody had private information, they would effectively have, if they were to try and seize that, they would, or specifically if you had some sort of like, think like a police officer trying to seize information, they would have to actually have a warrant to go in to take your private information. Whereas open source and public information is available. Intelligence then is just information and sort of like that awareness that we talked about. And this is called various different things, recon, cyber reconnaissance, HUMINT. And so in the beginning, I wanted to just give this warning. So if you're looking at your computer, look up here. Do not be a creep. Do not stalk people. It's not good. And if you do go stalk someone and say, oh, well, I learned how to do it from SIGPwny, we will be actively fighting you in court and we will not be with you. So don't do that. Get permission whenever you do this and make sure that you have permission to do this. And another thing is the actual OSINT code of ethics. You won't interact with any user without first confirming with absolute certainty that they're part of the challenge. In the case of these challenges, there's no need to create any content. You will not perform any port scans on backend services or attempt to do any investigation by logging into any of the aforementioned accounts. This is not web hacking. You will not perform invasive investigative OSINT on other people without their explicit consent. This includes friends, families, coworkers, strangers. There are exceptions. They don't apply here. Do not do this on people. This is strictly for education purposes and for the purpose of SIGPwny and our internal practices. So there are kind of two ways you can look at OSINT. There's one being like a high-level publicly available reconnaissance, or I guess not even reconnaissance, but a publicly available scraping of information. And then there's a much more targeted approach. So these can be split into OSINT and active reconnaissance. Purple team kind of does active, I would say you guys do active reconnaissance with some of the work that you guys do. What do you
Cover it. Yeah, we cover it a little bit on the offensive side. And, you know, you mentioned a little earlier that the setting in which you were doing this matters greatly. So if you are interested in learning kind of how to apply that in an offensive setting, under our supervision, of course, and through the guise of solving challenges, then that's where you can come learn more about that.
Perfect.
Yeah, but active reconnaissance essentially is the active scraping of that. Kind of
Question? Yes, question.
I will say we do have like trace labs.
Yeah.
We'll talk later about that.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. And so extending from OSINT, which is scraping information from the public domain, there's also signals intelligence, which is more focused on capturing signals, capturing data, and finding information and connecting to servers. So for example, Nmap, is anybody here familiar with Nmap at all? You guys have to raise your hand.
Everybody on purple should be raising their hand.
Should be raised.
Yeah.
Please, come on, there we go. We have some participation.
There we go.
Like, okay, perfect. So yeah, if you're familiar with Nmap, if you're familiar with these other things, these are examples of signals intelligence. And on the next slide, we have common ports. You can see we have, where's port 80? 80 is for websites, usually on HTTP. We have Doom here, Xbox for Windows, MySQL databases. Yeah, these are ports and these are places that you effectively can connect to computers on in order to send and receive information. When you actually connect, I don't know if anyone, who here was at web hacking? First web hacking, okay, perfect. So when you actually connect to a server, you will access and receive the website from a specific port. If you were to connect to HTTP google.com, you would connect to the Google servers from port 80. And also one other thing, do you guys know what the default port is whenever you type something in on like a website? Yes.
30.
3030? It's 3030 HTTPS.
No, before 4.3.
That's 4.4.
HTTPS is 4.3.
HTTPS is 4.3.
Yeah.
I think the default is 80.
80.
Yeah, it's 80. So yeah, exactly. I do know that, but and so yeah, to extend on this, Nmap and RustScan are two options for accessing and understanding ports and their information. And again, I do want to emphasize this: you cannot just port scan people. This is public information. An example of kind of doing this is, for example, like a denial of service attack. If you were to just repeatedly ping a specific IP, that's effectively how you do a denial of service attack, where you overload a server with requests, and then people who are actual valid users who want to go to google.com, for example, can't get access to the website because there's so much information going into the server. So yeah, only do this on our platform.
One more thing I want to add,
Right.
if you don't mind. Yeah, so if, don't do it, obviously, but let's say somebody did try port scanning, you know, over a network that we're currently sitting under right now. You've got a bunch of security analysts sitting somewhere. on this campus who are reviewing logs and checking all that kind of stuff out, you might get a visit. So don't do it, right? And obviously, when it comes to infrastructure, this is also government infrastructure, right? A university is state-owned. You got to think about where you're at. What's considered public versus private domain is really the key question here.
Perfect. Awesome. Just get a picture of data.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
And then now we can kind of get into OSINT. Humant is a very big topic. And so really what humant is it's getting information on a human's tendencies and their patterns. So for example, if you were to go to a business organization, one thing that would be very important to know is how is the company's email format? If you're in a specific company, is it J, or like, for example, for me, like Julius, J, or like F last name, or first name dot last name, or just these different formats and tendencies that may or may not give more information to someone's email. Along with, then you also have the locations, what type of social media platforms they're actually on, what protocols the organization may have. These are all things that you can kind of use to put together to create this map of a target. And we'll go into what a target map kind of looks like later. And then I guess to extend from that idea of a target map, people may also have different identities. So think of what you would kind of portray yourself as if you were on Instagram or like Facebook versus how you would portray yourself on LinkedIn. When you think of these different social media sites, you may think that you are portraying a different person, and you may be, and I guess that is kind of the big idea, is that you may be a different person in certain circles within the internet. And on some platforms, it's very easy to kind of have, what is it called, like partitions almost of yourself. Think like Facebook and LinkedIn. But what about when you're on Reddit and you're in a different subreddit than you normally are and you upvote something? It's very easy to kind of gauge interest across different subjects through different platforms.
I'll expand on that just a tiny bit here. So let's just break it down a little bit even further, but not too much. Right, on LinkedIn, you love to post about your internships, right? Your involvements in a professional setting. What I've noticed, what I think is goofy, is that some people on LinkedIn post their level of security clearance that they have. And so why do you think that'd be a bad idea?
Press.
Yes, adversaries, right? If somebody posts a level of their involvement to the degree of I'm more involved than some people do, it's better to just say, yeah, I have clearance, or better, not at all, you know, in most cases. But when people specify the various levels of their involvement, they become an easier target, if not a more suitable target for others, right? TikTok, right? You might post not just funny dance videos, but like I know people rant a lot on TikTok, right? Or Instagram, you post or Twitter, right? Or X. A lot of political opinions. So all these things can be compiled about a person. So be mindful of that. And really what we're trying to say here is it's all about a digital footprint.
Or the lack of a digital footprint. Yeah.
Which is better.
And we will touch on Sherlock also a little bit later in the slides. But really, yeah, Sherlock is a CLI tool to allow you to kind of scan different information across the web. So now going on to personal information. So we have social media profiles. We may have different usernames. We also may have images and then also deleted content. We kind of touched a little bit on social media and how you can have different identities, but it's very interesting because how many people reuse their usernames? They don't reuse their username. I also reuse my username a lot. I know one of the former presidents, Thomas Quigg, he talked a little bit on people having like almost personas online where they had a lot of information available rather than other people who try to stay anonymous. Think like if you have an Xbox gamer tag that you pretty much like got randomly assigned and you only use it on Xbox. It's going to be very hard to kind of identify and track you down from a public hosted perspective. And then reverse image searching. This is a really big thing. And something that I want to harp on is that images may not just contain the actual content of whatever they're showing you. Images have metadata and extra information that you can use to then get more information. We actually just had a talk as we were starting up earlier today about one of the CTF challenges on fall CTF, where there was an opportunity to look at metadata to find information about the time zone that the person was in. These are all different things that you can think of. There are a bunch of different things: file size, file location, especially when you get down to the file system, that are all opportunities to be able to find out kind of where an image came from. At a high level, reverse image searching is a great way to get information, and it's a great start to a lot of these challenges. And then another thing, and this is kind of the last thing, is that most content that's put online is not deleted. There may be opportunities for archive sites, or also just most major platforms don't hard delete information. They soft delete it, so they will not make it publicly available. Kind of think like an unlisted video on YouTube. If you have a video that is publicly available and hopefully monetizable, and you're racking up moolah, right? It's available to everyone. Whereas if something's unlisted, you need the link for it. And then if it's private, it has even like more, I would say, like OSINT security, where it's not easily accessible by every single person, but you may have to have access.
Too.
Yeah.
One tool that we are not covering in this specific presentation is EXIF tool. I mean, if you come to Purple, we can show you more of that, especially on the forensic side, to extract metadata about images, things that you can find online. Just wanted to put that out there because it is highly relevant to what he just talked about. Thanks.
Yeah, perfect. And then now I just want to go through a few question.
You said that file size is pretty relevant for about an image. How would it be useful? The file size of an image when you're in the context of OSINT.
I wouldn't say, I guess I did say file size is an option. I wouldn't consider it as a high priority option. There are other things that may be more important, such as like the time, or kind of like where you actually have that, or like, for example, like the file name. But it's just one different type of it's an example of metadata, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let's say an image, right? You have different image formats. One thing that I can think of off the top of my head that could be relevant is when you're looking through a directory of images, you prefer images of higher resolution, right? OSINT also relies on what you can see from what you have access to. So it's better to, the reason why file size is somewhat relevant in the conversation is because it's better to not have a pixelated image versus something you can get to a higher fidelity. Does that make sense? I don't really know how important that's going to be in practice, but I can tell you that that question can come up.
Perfect. So now I want to kind of go through an example of looking through a social media site. Obviously, if you're just doom scrolling, you're just going to be scrolling. This is also this is Thomas Quick. This is one of our former presidents. And so highlighted here are some of the opportunities that you can have to look around a Twitter profile. So we have tweets, likes, replies, external links, the username, as well as small descriptions. And there's always an opportunity, especially I feel like specifically for the CTFs that we have, Twitter is a pretty pivotal platform. It usually has a lot of information, and external links specifically are very major within OSINT because of the fact that you can create this like web of the person and the target. And then Reddit, I also talked about this recently. Reddit is a really good opportunity because of the fact that you have different subreddits. And so people they can kind of connect their identities together. I feel like everyone here has used Reddit. So I'm not going to go too much into it. Oh, also there's old Reddit, which is also an opportunity. And then media OSINT. One of the big things that you want to do is, actually, this is a really major thing. Has anyone ever opened an image in a new tab rather than just like, try to like save an image from like its smaller, like more pixelated view? So that is a very, very good thing to do when you're looking to reverse image search, because when you have an image that's a lot smaller, it may be compressed and it may be more pixelated. Whereas when you open it in a new tab, you can actually get the square image and you're able to search for that specific image. One example of this that I think of if I were to OSINT myself is like my LinkedIn image. I feel like I use that a lot. And so if you were to use that and reverse image search that specific image, you'd be able to find information on me. And then, yeah, I would say that. And then Google Lens.
Oh, one other thing.
And then here you go.
Like on the topic of Google and also this next slide about how to profile a target, which I'm not going to talk about too tactically because then it gets pretty interesting and you'll have a lot of questions that we should talk about in other meetings. You'd be surprised if you just Googled your name and see what comes up, right? So, I mean, just for example, a lot of companies sell data and even, bless you, your addresses, right? Your phone numbers, your family's phone numbers and addresses. I'm not telling you because I want you to be inspired to go look at other people's information, but rather there are certain services that you can look towards in a pursuit of removing all of that about yourself. And I don't think any of you would feel very comfortable if your name and your address was up there. For example, fastpeoplesearch.com is one of the really popular sites that does that. Again, not until you're doing a specific challenge or you've got permission or supervision to do so, should that be relevant. Otherwise, it's just cyber stalking. So let's say you do want to Google somebody, and I'll tell you why that's relevant later when we actually do that in a setting where you need to do that. What if a family member pops up? What if you suspect it's a family member? How do you know it's a family member? Do you think your target lives in a specific city? Right? Do you think they go to a specific school? Does somebody else who you think is friends with them or his family with them come up? Well, then that's when we start diagramming people we want, right? Your actual target, friends of this target, and the people that are in contact with the people that are in contact with that target. This is just an example of primary, secondary, and tertiary ring that can go pretty much to the nth ring, if that makes any sense.
It goes like 6 usually.
Yeah.
I think that's the max amount. I think we all would know each other, so kind of crazy.
I mean, a lot of it also comes down to social network diagramming. So if any of you guys are interested in that, there are also courses here that theorize based off of that. That also becomes relevant too. That's especially relevant in certain government careers. So that's your goal. You want to work your way down. And often if you can't do that, you try to start with people you suspect or settings you suspect are relevant to this person. And I'll tell you later why that was relevant for how we almost found somebody. Well, I put up a quick screenshot of a command line utility we discussed a little bit earlier. It's called Sherlock. If you were to type in Sherlock into the terminal, you can download it. Bless you. In addition to that, what this command line utility is meant for is you can type in a username and it will enumerate through as many public available resources as it possibly can to return at least similar usernames. Because I've seen similar output like Michael1 versus Michael if I type that in, right? Just for example. But if you run a query in the username John Doe, go check out what comes up. All you're going to see are the usernames that are registered under that specific alias or something very, very similar to it. Might be a great place to start if you want to look at many places at once, right? Eventually, the whole point is to narrow down your search. Well, I'll also tell you this. Municipal governments, whether they're local, state, and federal, also provide birth records, marriage records, and death records. Now, I don't know in what setting or an environment you want to do that with. For example, I've got a family member who's pursuing citizenship in another country. And that was highly relevant. But you could go to places like that to gather up the documents that you need and then be able to prove your case later on in time. That's one specific use case where public resources, like an actual facility dedicated to filing these files, right? You know, filing all this kind of stuff is there for you. Maybe you're doing research. Maybe you see that there's census data available by the Census Bureau. Theory says you can also identify people based off of data that was attempted to be
You know,
obfuscated, de-anonymized, right? Maybe you can tie somebody to that if you know enough about a person. So connecting the dots also does that too. Now, whether these are accessible Excels or CSVs to you, or actual documents that you can scan and parse, that's one other place to look.
yeah.
Do not stalk people again. Don't go looking for something about a person you're just like curious about. Don't do it. In fact, there are many laws, whether it's local, state, or federal, that talk about that exactly. Now, here's my favorite thing I want to talk to you about today. If you come to Purple Team at some point later in the semester, Sucha and Armand, raise your hands. I'm going to call on you guys because you've also got experience in looking into it and have done it with me before. Trace Labs is an actual organization dedicated to crowdsourcing and assisting with finding missing people, real missing people in actual missing persons cases. Whether the law enforcement is here or not, the whole point is that they're online and they're waiting for you. So they provide a virtual machine, usually a Kali machine, but it's populated with OSINT tools like ones that I just showed you and more that can start your search. When you submit flags on the Search Party CTF site, every flag that you see is accepted and you are awarded points for is actually new information that another team did not find prior. And if they're accepting the flag, they're telling you that's new information that advances the case forward.
On a real person.
On a real missing person. Now, Sucha and I were trying to run queries based off of a missing man in New Zealand who was fortunately found 2 days later. We submitted 5 flags, so 5 new pieces of information that helped advance the case.
Dude,
It's really, really cool. So, and how did we do that? I mean, we found this person's sister on TikTok. We found where the family might live. We found places of work. We found, you want to talk about this a little bit too?
Sure, I think one of the coolest things was maybe not from us, we
Yeah.
were able to like.
One second.
That's so great.
I think one of the coolest things was, maybe not us, but we found general information from like TikTok and social media, and we were able to like create a family map. But I think one of the first place teams, they actually found something Strava of like the time of disappearance. So they were able to like track information on that, and that was like a big lead for the police to use.
Struggle was a big one, right? That's even about also the times and places people are like private or to themselves, like their lifestyle. You think about things that they could be interested in based off of what you find online.
Yeah.
This is highly impactful stuff. Obviously, your supervisor given permission to do it. Come see me, come see Armand, and come see Sucha, come see the rest of Purple if you really want to get involved in something like that. Yeah, it's a beautiful cause. The next meetings are posted here. And yep.
Yeah, so we have the next meetings posted. This Saturday, we have Sunshine CTF, so come out and play. Hopefully you guys wake up before 9 AM. But yeah, we have Sunshine CTF this Saturday, as well as physical security and lock picking. So come out to that on Sunday.
You leave before picking a lock, I'll be sad. And also, you'll be sad. I'll make sure you pick a lock for you, sort of saying, if you come to that.
And you don't want to see Emma sad.
True.
Yes, in the back.
What time is this? What time does it start?
It was 9, I think it was 9,
Saturday starts at 9.
Yeah.
but it's 48 hours.
9 PM. We will probably have a more reasonable meeting time, like maybe like noonish. This one will officially, this one will like probably find a room to meet. But if you check the Discord, there should be a channel created. If there's not, that will happen. And anyone can start the CTF before meetings.
Yeah, and then next Thursday we have Rev 1, so feel free to come out. And we have a few OSINT challenges out right now, so feel free to check them out. We also have a waiver that you should sign before you actually start the OSINT challenges to say that you will not be stalking. But yeah, I'm happy that you guys can come out. Feel free to get going on the challenges and submit the flag. But yeah, thanks for coming to OSINT.